What's up, A to Z Sports Live on a Friday. And guys, I will tell you, I'm very excited that it is Friday here on the show. Because if you're a Tennessee Vol fan, if you stayed up late and watched that game last night, you probably did not get a lot of sleep. And you probably were frustrated when you went to bed after FAU knocks off Tennessee in the Sweet 16 and gives us all less sleep than we probably normally would have got, especially if you're on Eastern time up there where all of our friends in Knoxville are. But Sam, we are here live to not talk about the Tennessee Vols basketball team. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit with our good news segment that we always wrap up our weeks with as we end the show on Fridays. But Sam, we're going to play a game, and it's a game that I think everybody is probably familiar with, but we're just changing the words on it a little bit, and we're going to keep it not R-rated. We're going to keep it football and Titans GPG rated, I guess. We're going to play the old-fashioned game, cut one, keep one, trade one. And we've got 3 Tennessee Titans players who all make a bunch of money and are all very important to this team overall. But Rand Carthon is kind of stuck at this point. He spent some money in free agency on some short-term contracts. He has filled some holes, but that's kind of all he's got space to do right now. So if Rand Carthon wants to go out and sign more free agents, he's probably has to make another move by subtraction on the current roster before we can really go do that. We'll discuss that, Sam, and we'll go through cut one, keep one, trade one. And the 3 players right there on your screen, Kevin Byard, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. We're probably going to piss some people off this morning, but hey, let's do it anyway. So we also talk about the trade values that these 3 players have. And so we'll figure out what would be the right one to trade, the right one to keep, the right one to just flat out cut. So Sam, let's get this thing rocking and rolling here on this Friday. Very excited to have everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So tell the people what they got to do before we get officially started here.
Well, it's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a fun game, regardless of whether or not it pisses people off. This is probably a game that we've all been playing in our brains as this offseason has played out, and you're trying to keep track in your brain of like, well, what happens if they do this, or if they do this, or well, how can we get out of this situation? Because as we're about to find out, the Titans are in a kind of a sticky cap situation that Rand Carthon's hand is a little bit forced here before he can do anything else. So we'll get into the details of that. But before we get going, make sure you guys share the show. If you're watching on Facebook, go hit the share button in the bottom right. It's there for a reason. Take a YouTube link if you're watching on YouTube and tweet it out. Send it in a group chat, that family group chat you have. Maybe it's a friend that you know is a big Titans or NFL fan. Send them that link. If it's Twitch, do the same thing over there and retweet us at A to Z Sports. However it is that you found the show and that you watched the show, make sure you share the show that way. That's the best way to support, best way to grow the A to Z Sports family and get more Titans and NFL fans in our daily conversation. Sharing is caring, so do that before we get going.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. And Sam, I'm not wearing my BetMGM shirt this morning, which means I was the winner on the BetMGM app last night, not BetMGM. So we'll talk about that maybe a little bit longer, but they do power our show every weekday morning here on A to Z Sports, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show on our Twitter timeline segment by segment. And also make sure you hit us up on Instagram and on TikTok for more Titans coverage, as we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time. But we got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us, and they always make it happen and help you guys out in all different aspects of your life. Like Wilson County Hyundai. If you're looking for a new ride, that's the place you need to make a part of your new car buying process by seeing them in Lebanon or seeing them at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care, boneandjointtn.org, and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans. That's better coverage, rates, and service. Learn more about a health plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. So Sam, we will not discuss Tennessee Vols basketball until the last 2 minutes of the show. It's not throwing shade day. It's a good news day, although my good news involves shade as well. But make sure that you guys can still win with the BetMGM app as the tournament continues tonight in the Sweet 16 and then also over the weekend as the Elite Eight gets going. But Sam, I actually Monday morning, I believe, when you, me, and Zach have our pre-show conversations about what today's topic is going to be, we were discussing the rumors and then the reports from last Friday about Titans safety Kevin Byard potentially on the cut block, right? And that started with who was Mike Tannenbaum was discussing last week about the Titans asking him to take a pay cut. We went through all that situation on Monday, where it did seem like, and multiple reports have confirmed, the Titans approached Kevin Byard, the All-Pro safety, for a pay cut. And there were rumors a few weeks ago, earlier in the month of March, right after the NFL Combine, about the Titans either shopping Derrick Henry or at least receiving calls about Derrick Henry's availability, the Titans All-Pro and future Hall of Fame running back. And there's always been conversation about number 17 right there in your graphic, quarterback Ryan Tannehill, who carries the biggest cap hit on this roster by a long shot. Kevin Byard's cap hit's $19 million. Ryan Tannehill's cap hit is $36 million. And I believe Derrick Henry's cap hit is roughly 16, right, Sam? Is that correct? Did I have all three of those cap hits correct from your research off the top of your head?
Yeah. Tannehill's at 36.6, Kevin Byard's at 19, and Derrick Henry is at 16.3. So, yeah, you were pretty spot on there.
So after the release of Bud Dupree, these three players have the three biggest cap hits for the Tennessee Titans. And that's what makes this interesting, because our guys over at Football and Other F Words, the F Words pod, put this out this morning. I believe Zach Lyons running the account there. The Titans, after signing their crop of free agents, which we'll go to this real quick, these are the five guys the Titans introduced earlier this week as new free agent additions. They also signed Sean Murphy-Bunting to a one-year deal on Monday as well, right? So 6 free agents have been signed, and now after all the cuts that were made previously, which was about 5 or 6 guys too, the Titans now have $7.1 million in cap space. The draft pool for the Titans' 6 current draft picks is roughly $4.3 million based on those draft rounds and pick slots. Situations unsettled, Aaron Brewer and T.R. Tart, that we know, man, we got graphics for everything, right? Because we know these two guys were unrestricted or restricted free agents and got second round tenders for $4.3 million each. Those currently are unsigned, so they do not count against the cap as of right now. We know Big Jeff wants a big contract for a bunch of money. And then we get to the bottom of this, right? Decisions still looming. Byard, Henry Tannehill, and other situations to monitor. Danico Autry into his 30s, and Harold Landry coming off of his contract signing year, but tore his ACL and was unavailable for all of last regular season. So, Sam, that puts us in a situation. Rand Carthon has to make more moves in free agency. They didn't touch the wide receiver position outside of bringing back Nick Westbrook-Akine for a one-year deal. And we know NWI at the most needs to be wide receiver 4, in my opinion, at least. And so there's wide receiver needs there. And going with the draft pick and Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips seems very risky, of guys under 24 years old that you're having to rely upon, along with Chig, the only real tight end threat on the roster too, right? There's a lot of holes still. The offensive line still has some situations that you don't feel super comfortable with. So free agent moves are still necessary, but as the F Words pod puts out, you don't have a lot of cap space, especially when you're having to understand that the tenders of Brewer and Tart are going to at some point count against that cap space too. So there needs to be more subtraction before there can be addition in free agency. So Rand Carthon has to make another move. And I think you would agree, free agent wide receiver is something that must be done at some point, but they don't have the cap space to quite do it right now.
Well, there's a number of things that need to be done with. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you need a veteran wide receiver for sure. You still have a need at left guard. You still have a need at tight end with Austin Hooper kind of leaving for the Las Vegas Raiders. Jeff Swaim remains a free agent. So you maybe that those are 3 things that you address in the draft. But I agree with you, Austin. Like, you can't just count on all rookies, especially when you don't have a large number of picks to fill these holes. So yeah, and Big Jeff signing an extension could potentially lower his cap number for this year. But even if you weren't making an addition, the Aaron Brewer and Tier Tart contracts counting against your cap brings you over the cap space. 7.15 in cap space with 5.3 or 4.3 needed for draft picks. That gives you 2.8, give or take, left to play with. And those guys are both making more than that. So once they sign those and those go against the cap, you're already over it. So yeah, he's done a nice job. Rand Carthon has, of filling some of the holes and patching the roster up with cheap, affordable, underrated free agents, as we've been covering. But the job's not finished, and I don't think you have much of an option other than to try and rework some of these veteran deals, or maybe have a cap casualty or two.
Maybe, right? And so that brings us to our game, because this was a game and a topic that I brought up on Monday before we discussed Kevin Byard. And so the game is a game I think most people are familiar with, the old-fashioned keep one, cut one, trade one. And we're going to focus on the top 3 cap hits and the biggest 3 contracts, and also probably the biggest 3 names left on this roster. Keep one, cut one, trade one. A topic guaranteed to piss off Titans fans. Ryan Tannehill, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry. All 3 players make a lot of money. All 3 players very important. Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, the heart and souls of this franchise over the last 6 years, both from that 2016 draft class, I guess 7 seasons there. And then Ryan Tannehill, who has been a part and led this team to 36 wins in the regular season since he took over for Marcus Mariota in the middle of the season in 2019. So cut one, keep one, trade one. That is the big topic today, and we will get to the chat, and I'm curious to see how this goes. Jimbo, says, it is an easy question. Well, we'll find out how easy it is and what type of continuity or consistency we get across this question. So cut one, keep one, trade one, Tannehill, Byard, Henry. We'll get to all of that in your answers. But first, let me tell you guys about Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans. If you're a Tennessean and you don't remember exactly how much you're paying for your health coverage, go check it. And then check it, find that number, remember that number, then reach out to Farm Bureau Health Plans by going to fbhp.com/ATOZ and see how Farm Bureau Health Plans can help you save money. And not just save money just to save money, but save money and get better coverage for that better rate. Zach Bingham did that over a year ago. Jack Gentry has done that of A to Z Sports as well, and become part of the Farm Bureau Health Plans family and plan on them. They've been helping Tennesseans for now over 75 years with your health, dental, and vision, and it's super easy to join Farm Bureau Health Plans. Again, just check them out, fbhp.com/ATOZ. They have resources for you if you're a young adult trying to figure out what that and navigate the health plan world and the health coverage world. Farm Bureau Health Plans can help you with that educational process to make you feel comfortable about it, because it can absolutely be overwhelming. So check them out, fbhp.com/ATOZ.
Today's show is powered by BetMGM. It's still March. Some of the March matchups are still going on, as Austin teased last night. Well, we've got another slate coming tonight, and right now you need to get with BetMGM if you haven't already. Use the code ATOZ1000 when signing up. That's ATOZ1000 on the BetMGM app during March matchups, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet on the tournament misses. So if there's a game tonight that you're liking, maybe there's a game tomorrow, maybe you're back in the FAU Owls, maybe you're against the FAU Owls because they took out Tennessee. Find a game, find a team that you feel strongly about, place that bet with BetMGM, and make sure you use that code. That's ATOZ1000, because you can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if it doesn't hit. That's why they're the king of sportsbooks and the go-to throughout the entire tournament season. That's BetMGM.com and the BetMGM app. Okay, Austin, going to the chat.
Okay.
Because
It's loaded, right?
They said it was easy. They said it was easy. So we're going to find out how easy it is. It was keep one, cut one, trade one. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard. So here we go now. Deshaun Washington says keep Derrick Henry, trade Kevin Byard, cut Ryan Tannehill. Troy says Byard has the best trade value. We're going to get into that, yep. Troy. That'll be kind of the detailed breakdown after the game of what each one of them might be worth on the trade market. But Troy certainly thinks Byard has the most trade value. Jimmy says keep Henry. Well, what about the other two? It's three answers. Three answers. Yeah. So Kyle says,
and like normally we don't ask 3-part questions or 3-answer questions, but I think everybody understands the game we're playing. Keep, cut, trade, whatever it feels like. So yeah, give us all three. Don't just give us the one.
All right. Keep Byard, cut Ryan Tannehill, trade Derrick Henry. Keep Byard, trade Henry, cut Tannehill, says Mark. Tall Texan says to trade Derrick Henry. Let's see what else we got. We got Tighten Up says cut Tannehill, trade Byard, keep Henry. We have Jarrett says cut Byard, trade Henry, keep Tannehill. Honky Tonk says Byard is the youngest, so you keep him. I mean, there's something to that. There's also
is Byard the youngest? I mean, I know he and Derrick Henry were literally drafted in both 2016, but
Henry's the youngest by years. Henry's 29, Byard is 30, and then Tannehill is 35. So Henry's the youngest by age, but in terms of he's also a running back. So that
but also on the pro Derrick Henry side of this thing, he did not have a lot of tread on his tires his first couple of years at Alabama, right? So that saved him. He did not have a lot of carries his first really 2.5 years in the NFL with the Titans. So while Derrick Henry is 29 and he turns 30 in like January 3rd or 4th of 2024, so he will be 29 years old up until week 18 of this upcoming season. I don't feel like he's as old as, example, Ezekiel Elliott, same draft class.
I was going to say that too, but I think the counterpoint to that is in the last 3 years or 4 years or whatever, right? Like Derrick Henry has been used more than any other back.
Sure, but he also broke his foot. And he missed 9 games of a lot of carries. So does that actually help him on the back end of that longevity, like with the longevity? Maybe.
Yeah. So, okay, let's keep going here because we got keep Byard, cut Tannehill, trade Henry from Jarek. Let's see. We have trade Byard and Tannehill, extend Henry, says Ty. He's not even playing the game at all. Nasty Nate says cut Tannehill, trade Henry, keep Byard. Commander says keep Byard, trade Henry, cut Tannehill. Adams cutting Tannehill, trading Byard, keeping Henry. Let's see. Troy says Tannehill's a cut and you're keeping Henry. Jason says trade Tannehill, cut Byard, keep Henry. Xavier says cut Tannehill, keep Byard, trade Henry. I think that's the most common one.
Yeah.
Right? So, is that not keep Byard, trade Henry, cut Tannehill? Pistol Ramsey says keep Henry, cut Tannehill, and trade Byard. So I feel like we got a good variety here.
Right.
But, could go either way. So, once again, these are the three. Get your comment in if you haven't already. It is Ryan Tannehill, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, 3 of the Titans' absolute best players, but also 3 of their more expensive players, cutting one, keeping one, trading one if you're Rand Carthon, needing to create cap space.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned the Titans have $7.1 million of cap space, but, 4.3 of that needs to go to their draft class. And so not a lot of room to play with. So if Rand Carthon wants to make more moves in free agency, which we all agree he needs to, they've got to do some subtraction first. So I guess, Sam, I'll start right on our end. We've got a lot of comments, and Big Ten Jeff, we are not ignoring your comments. We just have a lot of comments because this is something that I think a lot of fans watching this are passionate about. So I think you have to keep Kevin Byard. I think Kevin Byard is my obvious keep. He's got, in my opinion, the most great football ahead of him. And I think if you're going to move on from 2 of the 3 guys in this conversation, which that's what it is, right? You keep one and the other 2 are gone. Just cut or trade. What do you get back? I think keeping Kevin Byard makes sense because if you're going to move on from Derrick Henry, then you also might as well move on from Ryan Tannehill. If you're moving on from Ryan Tannehill, I don't think you have to move on from Derrick Henry. But I do think if you're going to get rid of one of the offensive guys, you might as well just flip the entire offensive philosophy as a whole. So I'm keeping Kevin Byard. That makes the most sense to me. I also know that Kevin Byard, moving on from him, doesn't help you as much financially against the cap as the other two guys, because we've talked about this. If you cut or trade Kevin Byard, then you're really only saving like 5 point something million dollars. Derrick Henry is kind of along the same way, although you can, save a little bit more with Derrick Henry if you move him pre-June 1st. You save more on Byard if you move him post-June 1st. But I am keeping Kevin Byard. And Sam, this is where I think it gets interesting, and we'll talk about value later on. Who has more trade value? The running back, who is by far the better player and the more effective player for the position they play, but he's a running back. He's 29, on his way to turning 30. And we all know what the running back position doesn't represent when it comes to championship rings. Then you've got the quarterback, who is under a lot of fire. He has a big contract, but also his contract is really not that bad considering other quarterback contracts around the league. So where is the better trade value? And so I say you keep Kevin Byard, you cut Ryan Tannehill, and you trade Derrick Henry. I also think that there's a little bit of ethics or just PR the way you go about this. I think if the Titans cut Derrick Henry, the fan base explodes. If the Titans trade Derrick Henry, I think there's more understanding of the move. If the Titans cut Tannehill or trade Tannehill, I think there's understanding of the move. But a firestorm would happen if the Titans just flat out cut Derrick Henry and get nothing back from him. So that is my final answer here. Cut, trade, or keep. I say keep Byard, cut Tannehill, and trade Derrick Henry. Sam, I want to get your opinions first, but people do say this. Jared says, wrong, Austin. Henry is the face of the franchise. You trade Byard, cut Ryan Tannehill, and keep Derrick Henry. I'll say somebody else. Dustin says, wrong. Tannehill is worth more in a trade. Probably, sure. Rambo says, Byard is overrated. I don't think so. And then Scout Edwards says, you can get more for Tannehill, right? Maybe. We'll talk about the trade value here in a second. So I'm going to get Sam, I want your opinion here, though. With this, do you cut, keep, trade Byard, Tannehill, Henry? What do you say?
So I think you were on with Kevin Byard. I think he is the obvious keep in this situation. Of the three, I feel like he is the best at his position right now and has the best future of football ahead of him. I have a lot of confidence Kevin Byard can play 4 more years of elite football, and he's still one of the top 3 safeties in the game. Derrick Henry is one of the better running backs, but we all know the shelf life of running backs, how quickly that wall can come. And I think Kevin Byard is also the least replaceable compared to somebody like Derrick Henry, who we have a very deep running back draft class coming up in front of us, and a very good running back draft class. We have kind of seen the narrative starting to shift in the NFL over the last maybe 3 or 4 years of saying, well, hey, you can get really good running backs in round 3 or round 4 that develop into
Derrick Henry was a 2nd-round draft pick, and he's developed into a Hall of Famer, right? Now, that's not going to – you can't repeat Derrick Henry because that just doesn't happen. But you're right over that. You're overall, yeah.
Right. Occasionally there's a Bijan Robinson of this class, right, who you already know is going to be check 1,000 yards, incredible playmaker, game changer for an offense. Those guys usually go in the 1st round to a running back needy team. But there are a lot of backs in the third and fourth round that become 1,000-yard guys and just regular contributors to an offense. So in terms of the replaceability of Derrick Henry, a guy on Derrick Henry's caliber and his level, no. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer and a generational talent for a reason, but you can get good production out of the running back position much easier than you can safety, given what Kevin Byard has been able to do for that secondary. So that is why I keep him. And then where I disagree with you is I think the trade is to trade Ryan Tannehill and cut Derrick Henry. I think Ryan Tannehill has more trade value than anybody else because he is the quarterback. He is the guy that teams are willing to give up the second round pick for or multiple picks for because he's a quarterback and it's the most important position. So you do that before the draft. You can clear $27 million by trading Ryan Tannehill.
Is that before the draft though? Before the draft.
Well, actually, maybe not. So maybe it's not before the draft, but maybe it's a late after June. Yeah, because you'd have to wait till after June 1st. So you wait till post June. I think if you can find a trade partner for Ryan Tannehill at that point in time, or a team that maybe didn't get their QB in the draft, maybe didn't get Lamar Jackson, maybe didn't get Aaron Rodgers, depending on what happens with that whole situation. If you can find a trade partner for Ryan Tannehill, you can clear $27 million against the cap by doing that. And then, you get more money by cutting Derrick Henry than you would by cutting Kevin Byard, unless Byard's designated as post June 1 as well. But I think that's what makes the most sense to me, is getting over $33 million for both Tannehill and Henry being gone, retaining Byard, having a potential draft pick to fix running back. And then you're looking at $40 million and almost over $30 million in cap space to either get a quarterback or fill some of the other needs.
So I think there's obviously we're playing this game, cut, keep, trade. This is not the reality as of right now, but I do think we understand that it is a low probability that all three of these players are on the Titans in 2023. I think that's where I'm at. And so, again, we both say keep Byard. I say, cut Tannehill and trade Derrick Henry. Now, here's the different level of my opinion on this is I don't think you're trading Ryan Tannehill pre-draft. I think if you're trading one of these guys, you're probably trading Derrick Henry pre-draft. Because
I would agree with that he would be the one to go pre-draft.
Yeah, and that's where I think the extra value is that you can't trade Ryan Tannehill pre-draft because quarterbacks are still hoping, hey, we can get one of these 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 and not have to trade for a Ryan Tannehill, or the Aaron Rodgers thing's still out there, Lamar Jackson, whatever, right? And so I think that's where you're holding on to Tannehill until post-draft. Derrick Henry is a pre-draft trade or a draft week, draft day type trade where you automatically acquire that draft capital to use now. And that is where I look at the Titans with just 6 draft picks and a lot of holes to fill with not a lot of cap space to do it as well, in needing draft capital this year to start this rebuild. And Derrick Henry, I think, is your best option of the 3 to trade him pre-draft to go save yourself some money, get draft picks, and you're going to find a team that thinks that Derrick Henry can help them win their conference, win their division, and be a Super Bowl contender as a part of their offense. Maybe not be, Derrick Henry 25, 30 carries as part of their offense, but be that next step. With the Buffalo Bills have been, the sexy trade partner for Derrick Henry and the Titans all month, right? So that's where I think it's you're trading Derrick Henry for this draft. Ryan Tannehill is more likely, and I talked about this on Wednesday when we talked about Lamar Jackson, is that I think the Titans should absolutely be in the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes after the draft, not before the draft, after the draft. And the Titans can then maybe see what if you trade Derrick Henry pre-draft.
And the outside of this, and I'm sure that you probably brought this up, but the other reason the Titans should be involved after the draft is the draft pick, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah. So you can see
the money, like you probably get a better deal the longer it drags out, but then you also give up less of a draft pick. So I don't expect Lamar to go before the draft. Like it benefits him to drag it out as long as possible because certain teams like the Titans benefit from not losing their number 11 overall pick and potentially it being in the 20s. So going off of that, though, there was a comment up here that I'm trying to scroll up and find that basically said we can't give our scenarios unless we're offering solutions to it. But I think that's a solution right there. So because right, so let's play my scenario.
Okay.
Where you are trading Ryan Tannehill after June 1st. Maybe he's in the Baltimore trade. Maybe he's the one that goes to Baltimore with I guess that
if Lamar Jackson goes somewhere other than Baltimore, Baltimore needs a quarterback.
Right. So they need a quarterback, right? Maybe it's the Jets, maybe it's Atlanta. There's a number of teams that I think could be at play for a veteran. And we have seen, by the way, teams give up third, fourth round picks for a backup before. So it's not,
Ryan Tannehill was given up for a fourth round pick to be a backup insurance policy.
Right. So maybe the Titans can get a future third or a future second for Ryan Tannehill. Whatever it is, you move on from Tannehill. That'll save you $27 million against the cap in 2023. You hold on to Kevin Byard. You potentially cut Derrick Henry in my scenario, at least, which I think you would have to do after June 1st as well. Give him a post June 1 designation, which saves $11 million in 2023. And so now you are looking at $38 million in cap space created. With a hole at running back and a hole at quarterback, I think you can address running back in the draft in day 2 of the draft, partner that guy with Hassan Haskins and find production out of your running game. And you have money to play in the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes if that's what they choose to do. So I think there's an avenue there where you can clear a lot of money. And it's not like you are mortgaging your future, even, Austin, because Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry are off the books next year anyway. This is just kind of getting a jump start, getting a head start on the money that you can create to then make something happen with this roster.
So there's another nuanced aspect to this too, that, cap space is important. We understand that. I've got something else that I want to bring up that I think plays an interesting role in the conversation we're having about the Titans needing to subtract dollars and cap space from the current roster to go fix this team and fix this roster the way Rand Carthon wants to get to. I'll get to that. The hidden nuance of this conversation that I don't think we've talked about yet this offseason enough, because it really didn't light bulb go off for me until a couple of days ago. But Sam, first tell everybody about Wilson County Hyundai.
Wilson County Hyundai, you have to make them a part of your car buying experience and your car buying process in Lebanon, or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Wilson County Hyundai is the place to go for your new ride this year. You can get 0% APR for 48 months on 2023 Santa Fe, Sonata, or Tucson. Painbone and his team at Wilson County Hyundai are happy to guide you through the financing process, assisting with buying or trading in your vehicle. Forget those downtown Nashville prices. They're in Lebanon, so you can go out to Lebanon and see friends at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. That's wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Make them a part of your new car buying process.
Also, with BetMGM, you guys can win some money like I did last night. The Vols lost, but I didn't. I won on BetMGM. You like
to fade yourself on BetMGM.
I'll talk about the emotional hedge perfection that I pulled off last night, but that'll be later on in the show. But with BetMGM, you guys can continue to win this March. The tournament is just getting spicier each and every night with top-tier games and incredible performances by college athletes on these tournament floors. But you can win with BetMGM by using this code, ATOZ1000. That's ATOZ1000, which gets you up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet on March matchups misses. So that's a great way to take advantage of that. So do that with code ATOZ1000 and your first bet on March matchups, you can get up to $1,000 back if it misses. So you download the app, you sign up, use our code ATOZ1000. Your first bet has to be on March matchups. And then that you can get back up to $1,000 in bonus bets if it misses. Visit betmgm.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older, Tennessee only, new customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification, eligible requirements. Rewards issued at first online, real money wager only. Rewards issued at non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days. And for public game of sport, call Tennessee Redline 800-889-9789. Sam, can you please reset the conversation for me before I dive in and tell us about the hidden storyline about the Titans' financial situation here?
Yeah, so we're playing the game, right? And I do have to clarify because I saw a comment that said, Sam, knock it off with the comments about cutting Derrick Henry. I don't want the Titans to cut Derrick Henry. I don't think they should. But in the context of this game, which is keep, cut, trade, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and Kevin Byard, I think that might be the smartest option. There's an argument. You save the most money by trading Ryan Tannehill and cutting Kevin Byard post June 1st. For me, it comes down to the replacement level of you can replace Derrick Henry easier than you can replace the production of Kevin Byard and Ryan Tannehill. But Austin, that is the conversation. Mm-hmm. What should the Titans do if you were forced to? Because Rand Carthon is forced to make some sort of move somewhere on this roster, right? Here's the cap situation. That you got 2.8 million, give or take, to work with. He might be forced to make some sort of move. Cut, keep, trade. That's right. What we're dealing with.
So my answer was keep Byard. I said cut Tannehill likely after the draft and trade Derrick Henry for the draft / before the draft for that. So here I think is the hidden storyline of the entire conversation, because cap space is important and the Titans are up against it because they have a lot of dead cap money. Here's also what we're not really thinking about. Cash. Cash is important because the Tennessee Titans can save cap space by extending Jeffrey Simmons, but they have to have the flat out cash to extend Jeffrey Simmons and pay him all of his signing bonus. Signing bonuses are due in the players' bank accounts 21 days after the contract is signed. So they have to be able to pay that cash. And so if you look at these three guys, their cash this year for Kevin Byard is 14.1. The cash for Ryan Tannehill is $27 million. And the cash for Derrick Henry is $10.5 million. Now, if you look at Jeffrey Simmons' contract, you could probably pay all of Jeffrey Simmons' bonus signing bonus and have that guaranteed money set aside with the cash you could save with moving Tannehill and moving one of the other guys, Byard or Derrick Henry. And so I think cash is very important here because the Titans need the cash to be able to extend Simmons to help the cap. If they want to go get Lamar Jackson, they would need the cash to be able to extend Lamar Jackson and sign him to that. Orlando says, so Amy is broke. No, she's not broke. She's just not super rich with NFL owners. So I think that is the interesting, it's the cash available that we're talking about here. So what do you think about that aspect of the storyline?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the thing that's obviously not discussed on the surface level is the cash, as you mentioned, and the extensions, as you mentioned, and how you can get some cap, leeway from the cap and get away from the cap by maybe it's a restructure, maybe it's an extension for Jeff Simmons and your ability to lower that number. I think that might be the goal, right? Like they went to Kevin Byard and asked him to take a pay cut. So I get the sense at least that Rand and the Titans are kind of looking for a way to create additional cap space to continue their patchwork without having to move away from somebody that creates another hole. Mm-hmm. Now, how possible is that, right? Like you could restructure Harold Landry, but Harold Landry, I don't know how motivated he is to make something like that happen. And like you said, you have to have the cash. Same thing with Jeffrey Simmons. So I think that's certainly a factor. because the problem with this situation, Austin, is what I just said, right? Creating another hole to get money to fix a different hole doesn't make a ton of sense, but you don't necessarily have the money to do it all right now, which is why the Titans are confusing me a little bit. Like, they're not in a spot where they can just go in on this year because they haven't done anything with the wide receiving core. They're missing offensive line starters still and a lot of offensive line depth. They don't have a ton of draft picks. They have not very many draft picks compared to some other teams in the league in terms of like their ability to fill those holes via the draft. So if you're doing this like in on this year's strategy, which is what they've done in free agency, where is that money coming from? But if you're moving on from Ryan Tannehill, are you even going to be competitive this year? It's very, very caught in the middle here. And like you said, there's just like a lot of nuance to the different areas and like directions they can go.
Yeah, because you're right. And both of us are moving on from Tannehill, whether trade or cut. I say cut.
You need a quarterback in that situation, right? Unless you're doing the full rebuild, in which case, what does it matter? Go move on from all of these guys. So like,
I think the reason why I don't think you move on from all three is because I think Kevin Byard has a ton of value in a rebuild process.
I would agree. So yeah, I think that makes sense. But like, I guess the point of it, right? The point of this conversation is what we just said, which is you don't have cap space to fill necessary needs and you need to create cap space. Well, are those needs necessary if you don't have a quarterback and you don't have Derrick Henry and you're not fielding your A roster? Like, then you might be okay with just going with younger guys in different spots. I don't know, but like that is part of like the really crazy convoluted offseason that is the Tennessee Titans right now. And unfortunately, we might not get answers to immediately because this might not come until the middle of June.
Or the draft. I think there's something on the horizon.
There'll be direction when you get to the draft. Yeah.
So I'm keeping my head on a swivel draft week when it comes to some of the Titans' bigger names. Nathaniel gives some lunch money here. Says cut Tannehill post June 1st, trade Henry for draft capital, keep Byard. I think that signed Kareem Hunt and trade for Jackson. I guess that would be Lamar Jackson. You wouldn't. I mean, I guess if you want to call it a sign and trade because you're having to give up 2 first-round draft picks with the offer. So that's what Nathaniel says. Ryan Fields gives some more lunch money. Says trade Big Jeff, save money, and get picks back. I think that is an option. Again, I think
that's an option in the full rebuild version of this.
Yeah, I would like to avoid that option because the Titans still need to sell tickets. And that kind of brings me to Carol's comment. It says, I will no longer support the Titans if they trade Derrick Henry. As one of the founders of this team, I will watch as one of the founders of this team. Carol Renee Jordan Williams, did you found the Titans? But I will wash my hands of this team. They always get rid of the face of the team, like back in the day with Eddie and Steve. Well, Carol, I think this is something that we have to recognize. Look at the entire NFL. The entire NFL does this. Who is the last player that is a Hall of Fame level player who started and ended their career with the same team? I mean, like the first guy that comes to my mind is kind of Ben Roethlisberger. And is he, I think he's a Hall of Famer eventually.
It's almost a little different with a quarterback too. Yeah. Big Ben's
but even think of the quarterbacks though. Joe Montana didn't finish.
Well, no, right. Well, eventually, but I mean, these guys are like
in their 30s.
I mean, late 30s. I mean, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, like these are guys that made the transition late, which does happen.
Brett Favre, as you said, you go like all of these guys, you know.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking.
Emmitt Smith played for the Arizona Cardinals.
Larry Fitzgerald's a very good one of a Hall of Fame caliber skill position player too that spent his entire career with one team. That's a really good one.
The point is
it's rare. No, and that's the league, right? Like there's always unless you are on one of those very unique New England Patriots teams that, you know, is a contender year after year after year after year, you know, there are ups and downs to this thing. And when you're on the downs,
Yeah,
money is disposable.
There are absolutely examples of this, like Larry Fitzgerald and Ray Lewis, and Barry Sanders retired young. He doesn't count, right? But
Eli
and
Manning, that's a good
Eli
one.
Manning, yeah. But again, it got ugly, right? Like it doesn't ever end pretty. It never ends pretty.
He retired a Giant after being out benched in 2 straight years with the Giants.
Yeah.
And it was and everybody loved him, but they're like, hey man, it's time. We gotta be honest with ourselves here.
Right.
And it's
not so that's
go ahead, but I mean, I was just saying it's not baseball. It's not the baseball contracts. You sign a guy to a 10-year contract in baseball, it's all guaranteed. You're paying him that no matter if you cut him, you're still paying him for 10 years and all that money. So teams are more inclined to keep guys longer term. A lot of guys stay with teams for their entire careers or for a majority of their careers because those contracts are guaranteed. But when you can kind of just get your hands free of big money, it happens more often than you'd think. And other teams are always looking for those veterans that can give them value late in their careers.
Sure. So I do think that's interesting. And so, look, players move teams late in their careers. It's happened with, as I mentioned, Joe Montana did it. Joe Namath did it. You've got Brett Favre and you've got all the recent ones who have done it too. And yes, there are the Jerome Bettises. Yes, there are other players that, there is Bruce Matthews, right? Who is an outlier for the organization because Keith Bullock did it, right? Name a guy who didn't finish his career with the Tennessee Titans. Jarrell Casey gets moved because that's how the business works of the NFL, not just a Titans problem. So it is a NFL wide thing. So don't hate and point fingers at the Titans for doing this when that's what everybody is doing. And Malachi brings up Steve Young. Well, Steve Young had to retire because of concussions. Like there are other situations that go into that we're not remembering overall. So Sam, let's get back on.
But again, she said it with Derrick Henry. Do you think Minnesota Vikings fans were happy or ever thought Adrian Peterson would wear another uniform? No,
probably not.
And he ended up having good seasons for a couple other teams occasionally, like Washington had a big year there at least once, hopped around to, New Orleans, Tennessee, where else? I mean, he was everywhere. Detroit, he was there for a bit. So when it comes to the running back position too, you can be a legend of a franchise. It doesn't mean that you're going to stay there forever. Ezekiel Elliott's finding a new team right now, and he has been the identity of the Dallas Cowboys and one of the faces of the Dallas Cowboys for the last 7 years. But no, he's probably gonna be the running back for the Jets. So,
and Patricia says the Titans have a bad history of doing more of this often, though. Well, Nick, I just think that everybody watching right now are just more in tune with what the Titans are doing. And, you brought up the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, Emmitt Smith, the Cowboys moved on from Emmitt Smith because it was the right thing to do. And he was the NFL's leading rusher of all time. That's just what happens. And so we pay more attention to the Titans because that's where we are right now, but it happens everywhere and every team does it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
that's the reality. And it sucks. It hurts seeing Derrick Henry in a Bills uniform. It will not be fun if it happens. I don't want to do that the same way you don't. But
the Colts moved on from Peyton Manning.
Carthon can't afford to think like that. He can't afford to think, well, I don't want to watch Derrick run for the Bills. He has to think, what's best for my football team 3 years down the line? How do I build a Super Bowl contender by the time the new stadium comes to town in 2026? That is what Rand Carthon has to make his decisions based on.
Yep. All right. A to Z Sports here live on the show. Let's get to this, Sam. So when we talk about trade values, I guess we'll start with Kevin Byard because we both have the Titans keeping them in this game that we're playing. What do you think Kevin Byard's trade value is on the open market?
I think you can get a day 2 pick. Probably. I think that's the asking price, and you could probably get it. The only spot where I think you could lose a little bit of leverage and maybe get 2 later picks is if a team gets the sense that you are desperate to move Byard and going to cut him in June anyway, they are less likely to trade for him because they might be able to sign him in June for less money. So like why give up the picks now when you could sign him for less money in June and still keep your own draft picks? But I think the ask is probably a day 2 pick. And on the low end, he probably gets you a 4 and a 5 or a 4 and a 6 or something in that range. Really good player, but not a premium position. And he's making a lot of money. So I think that hurts him.
Yeah, and Honky Tonk says not worth it. Keep KB, and I think Sam and
I would agree
on that. Yeah,
that's why I don't have them trading him or moving on from him. If it's a 3rd round pick for Kevin Byard or a 2nd round pick, even I'd rather have Kevin Byard.
Yeah, and Mr. Cloud says Byard has the highest value, a 2nd and something else. Henry would be a low day 2. Tannehill's difficult depending on the team trading for him. Well, yeah, but you've got positional value there where Byard and Henry don't have that on their side, and Tannehill does.
I think if you were getting a 2nd and something else for Byard, it would be done. Personally, it's hard to say. It's hard to estimate. I think if that was an offer that they had and that was realistically what they could get, that they would have already made the deal or would make that deal. I don't see that happening because of what I said. The leverage is different, knowing, hey, Tennessee's either got to eat this money, they have to trade him, or they're going to cut him June 1st anyways, and we can scoop him up for half the price and not give up picks. I don't see a team giving up a 2nd and then some, especially like, look at what some of these guys go for when they're on deals like this. Brandon Cooks was a 5th and a 6th or a 6 and a 7 or something, and he's a really good receiver. Yeah. But it's, it's a big contract, and it's an older guy, so that's kind of the reality.
Right. All right. So we've gone through Kevin Byard. I think the ask is a 3. I think it's likely to get a 4 and a 5 the following year or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think
what about
5? Yeah.
What about Derrick Henry? What's Derrick Henry's trade value?
I'd be surprised if they got more than a 4, to be honest. I mean, it's 1 year on the deal and it's a big cap hit. Which is why I think there's an argument that you don't do this with Derrick either, right? Like Derrick Henry, the face of your franchise and, a future Hall of Famer who is still very much a very good running back for a 4th round pick. If that's really like what the realistic like offers on the table are, maybe there's a bidding war that gets you up to a 3rd, but you're not getting a 1st rounder. You're not getting a 2nd rounder. It's going to be if that's what Titans fans are expecting, they're going to be underwhelmed, which is why I have been in the don't trade Henry camp as long as you are trying to remain competitive this year. I think that's just a bad look for what you'd be getting in return. But yeah.
Donald says Christian McCaffrey got a 2nd and a bunch of day 3 picks. I think Derrick Henry would get multiple picks. I would say it would probably be a high, a 3rd or a 4th at the highest, and then maybe kind of similar to Byard. Honestly, I think Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard have similar trade value because of their ages, their positions, and what all goes into that. So that's kind of my thought. Now, what do you think about Ryan Tannehill? Because you have the Titans trading Ryan Tannehill in our game. What do you have Ryan Tannehill's trade value as?
I think you can get a 2 for Ryan Tannehill and something else. Like I would not be surprised if a team got desperate, if a team like the Jets, right, if it falls through with Aaron Rodgers, or a team is looking for a placehold starter while they kind of work out a young guy and develop a young guy, I could see you getting a 2 and like a 5 next year, something like that. Like I could see a 2nd rounder, I think is probably the best pick of the bunch, comes from Tannehill because teams pay for quarterbacks. We know this. They overpay for them sometimes. That would not be a huge shock to me. And if you're looking for immediate help or even a veteran presence, Ryan Tannehill's better than anything that the 2nd round of the draft can offer you.
He said he's a lot cheaper. Now you have to look at the teams that would be willing to, want to bring on.
You might have to take some of the contract to get that, but I do think I think his value for a quarterback is more than the other 2 for sure.
Yeah. And then I think my last thought on the Tannehill thing is, who are these teams? And in my opinion, it's probably post-draft to know who these teams are. And I have two in mind that I feel like would get desperate.
I
And
had
I'll
2 that
hold
came to mind too. Who are
and
your
I'm going to
2?
hold because we're going to talk next week about that. I
Okay.
think, a couple trade partners, potential trade partners for Ryan Tannehill that we can do early next week as we bridge the gap into draft month.
Jimbo says if you get a second, it's the best deal of all time. I think you'd be surprised what quarterbacks can get when a team gets desperate. Like straight. We know my Chicago Bears connection. I watched the Bears give up a 4 for Nick Foles when they already had a starter. So, and as you mentioned, the Titans had a starter and traded for Ryan Tannehill when Ryan Tannehill was a reclamation project at the time. He was not a proven starting quarterback, which he is now in Tennessee. And they give up a 4th rounder for him then. So I don't think it's unrealistic to think you can get a number 2 from somebody. I certainly think that is your asking price, and you might be able to squeeze another later pick out of them somewhere too.
All right, so that'll wrap up our game. I think did we make enough people mad with our keep, cut, and trade?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, we had one person who claims to be a founder of the team would say they would wash their hands of the Titans if they cut Derrick Henry. So I think we've ruffled a little feather, made some skin crawl on this Friday morning.
And
but
again, we have to clarify.
It's a game.
It's a game. I'm not saying they should cut Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry should be on the Titans in 2023. I do. I think that's where if you're trying to win, he needs to be on your roster. But if you are looking for a mandatory move to create cap space, I think it makes more sense than moving on from Kevin Byard.
Edward says, yeah, no, I didn't like this game. And Jerome says, everyone watching right now is clearly bothered.
Yeah.
So look, okay, let's flip it, right? Let's end with good news. It's been a stressful show
for
Titans fans. 56 minutes of cutting or trading Kevin Byard and Derrick Henry. And so let's end it with good news here on this Friday morning. So ain't that good news? Share your good news with us and we'll share it with you guys here in a little bit. But first, let me tell you guys about the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get whenever you get hurt in life, you have to go find out how to get healthy. And the Bone and Joint Institute can absolutely do that for you with all of their specialists they have right there in Franklin who can manage and help you with any type of injury you could possibly think of. And also the facilities to get it done and do it in a convenient way for you. So once again, check them out, boneandjointtn.org.
All right, let's talk BetMGM, the king of sports books. It is still March, and the March matchups are going on. If you sign up with BetMGM using the code ATOZ1000, that's ATOZ1000 on the BetMGM app, you can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet on the tournament doesn't hit. So we still have we're at 12 teams remaining. 12 teams remaining.
That's right. That's right.
Is that right? I don't know. Yeah.
After
12 teams remaining right now. We will be at 8 after today. We will be at 4 by Sunday night. And by the time this next show rolls Monday morning. So make sure you're getting your picks in. Make sure you're getting your bets in. That's ATOZ 1000 on the BetMGM app. Up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't hit. That's why they're the king of sports books. Austin, your good news has to do with BetMGM. Am I wrong? No? Here we go.
Yes. Ain't that good news to send us to the weekend? So does my good news involve my BetMGM situation? Jason real quick says, Austin, original PSL owners were called founders. Stupid, yes, but facts all the same. I agree, Jason. That's a very stupid term to use for a PSL owner, not a founder. A founder, and thank you for clearing that up.
If I'm a PSL owner, I like it though. I'm dropping that all the time. It's like, do you know I'm a founder?
That's
I don't know if you heard, but I'm a founder. I'm dropping that as often as possible.
Yeah, I'm sure. Big Ten Jeff says, "Good news, the Vols lost, and now their fans are eating crow." I don't know what you like. What Vol fans are eating
Well,
crow?
I will say I'm not, too tuned. I didn't watch too much of the Tennessee Duke game because I was salty because I was riding the Blue Devils pretty heavily this March. But I did see the video of that dude like just straight up body checking the guy in FAU out of nowhere, just dirty play to knock him on the ground, and like it was a tackle. It was pretty atrocious. So
Yeah,
maybe that's
Euros
what he's talking
Plavsic
about
does some
because
stupid things, but Vol fans are not eating crow. Like Jeff, like Tennessee Vol fans have been so fence riding this team the entire season, and whether they overachieved or met expectations or anything, I don't. That's not for the
they
conversation here.
exceeded
But
my expectations. They exceeded my. I thought they were not long for this tournament, and
yeah,
playing in the second weekend is really all you can ask for out of a team. Like, I mean, if you have the history, if you're not a regular national title contender, which Tennessee is not, you just want to make the second weekend and see what happens from there. Like, keep stacking tournament wins, something that I haven't been able to do the last 3 years, but we we talk about this though. It's like if you just gave me a Sweet 16 appearance, I'd be so happy. So Vols fans have nothing to hang their head about, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
this is. I think it was given the fact that there's no Zakai Ziegler, overall
yeah.
a pretty positive tournament experience.
Yeah, you beat Duke. And Drew says eating crow without point guard and a team that can't throw a Cheerio in a milk bowl. And then Jeff says, Austin, Zach Reagan and Charlie Burris, who host the Big Orange podcast, they'll have a reaction episode out later today, called Duke fans soft for complaining about refs. Then last night they complained about the refs. The both things were true though. Like there were spots in that game. There were spots in that game last night that the refs, I thought, fed into the narrative for the last 5 days about Tennessee. Were the refs the reason why the Vols lost the game? Hell no. Absolutely
Well,
freaking not.
yeah. So I think that's his point, though. Like, there's always going to be poor officiating, and unless it's a really tight game where like there's a big call, like I will say, FAU shouldn't be playing because Memphis beat them in the first game. Like Memphis won that game, and am I salty because I was on BetMGM riding Memphis? Yes. But that was an official directly costing a team a game and putting FAU into the second round. And now here they are still dancing to the round of 8. But
Right.
I can see that where it's like, hey, if you're going to call out another fan base for being like, oh, the refs, you can't do it when you lose. I'm just saying.
No,
You have
and like,
to.
look, you can look at, and and this is not made for shade, but here's my problem is when TBS comes back and says Euro Plavsic got a flagrant for a really weak move and that hurt Tennessee and it was a 4-point swing, then yeah, we have the right to be mad about that. And then when TBS says, "Oh, sorry, we showed the wrong replay," and that this is what the flagrant was for, then okay, then TBS messed that up. But that was a lot of people were mad about that. But then, there were some weak calls there. I think flopping did get
I mean, yeah, I
the
mean,
benefit of the doubt.
they shot
No,
33% from
again, I do
four. I
not think
mean,
Tennessee lost that game, and this is my good news because I raked it in with BetMGM last night because I knew and I had a great feeling that Tennessee would show up weak in this game. So much so that I hit my 3 bets. Shout out Grace Remington, who put out the first half under on our social media yesterday. That was the easiest cash of all time with like 49 combined points in the first half under. Then I had pregame bet FAU plus 5.5. And then at halftime, when Tennessee was up by 5, I said, no, this isn't going well. And I put money on the FAU money line at plus 275 and all 3 won because you could see it easily. Tennessee was toast in the first half. FAU missed shots, and that was the reason why they were up 5. And so my good news is I got to emotionally fade, but also I just played that really smart because I knew what I was watching. And Tennessee hit the end of their season, and that's all they had in the tank. They got to win over Duke, so that's something that's memorable and fun. But that's about it.
yeah. Hey, I had a good day on BetMGM too. I have a little couple parlays that were Hail Mary parlays on the round of 16, Austin, that are I'm thinking about cashing out that are still alive thanks to Gonzaga, who, what a game that was. I mean, that was, I don't know if you stayed up for the end of that one, but it was a 10-1 run by UCLA in the final 50 seconds to take a 1-point lead, and then a 3-ball from the logo for Gonzaga that put them ahead. But Alabama, Creighton, Miami, Texas today. That's what we're rooting for in the chat, because that's about, I'm not going to say the odds, I'm not going to say the payout, but it would be very, very helpful. So is that your good news, that you faded yourself on BetMGM?
No,
And
my good news is that I knew the team that I follow, and I made money and profited off of their inefficiencies and flaws.
Your good news is that what would have been a complete loss was not a complete loss, because you were astute enough to pick up on where things were trending. My good news is Wednesday, next week, Wednesday, is softball. Softball opening day for my men's beer league team, coming at you on Wednesday night next week. So that we play every Wednesday. I'm pumped up. Yeah, I'm ready to get going. So Wednesday, I just got a fresh case of softballs and a couple new bats. So got the team equipment ready to go. I'm ready to go win a championship in slow pitch softball. Very fun.
Yeah, that does sound like fun.
I like it. I look forward to it every week. It's just a nice little 2 hours or an hour and a half of little competition. You can hit a couple home runs, get out of there. It's a good time.
Yeah. There you go. All right, guys. Well, hope everybody has a great weekend. Buck Rising will be back live Sunday night for A to Z Sports Primetime. We'll be back live Monday morning. Before you head out and head to your weekend, make sure you give us that thumbs up, give us that like on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. That helps out our algorithm, and we'll have a lot to talk about early in the week next week. So enjoy your weekend. Be safe. We'll see you on Monday. Appreciate it as always.